views expressed on this program are those of the hosts, guests, and callers, and are not necessarily those of this station, its management, or other advertisers. You're listening to Transformation Talk Radio.
Welcome to Radically Distinct Radio with Jen Morgan. Radically Distinct Radio bridges the worlds of brand marketing and professional development to help you take control of your future and build your brand to accomplish your goals. Whether you're an individual trying to reinvent yourself to launch a new venture, or you're an executive trying to reposition your company to modernize your sales and marketing programs, Radically Distinct Radio provides insights for how to show up in the world as your most powerful brand. As a brand strategist, advertising producer, and business coach, Jen Morgan has 15 years' experience helping individuals, teams, and companies create stories that inspire action. Her RAD method empowers people to be radically distinct by giving them a framework for perceiving their brand and expressing their value that sets them in a class of their own. Now, she brings the RAD method to the airwaves to help you maximize your brand power to produce results. Here's your host, Jen Morgan.
Thank you for tuning into Radically Distinct Radio. The election is over, and if there's one thing that I am more certain on than ever before, it is that the future is unpredictable, and the only thing that you can control is who you are, how you show up in the world, and how you spend your time, energy, and resources. We're living in a time of radically distinct change. Technology has massively disrupted the way we do business, the way we think about our career paths, and the way that we think about the future for our families. It's changed the way we work, it's changed the way we communicate, and it's changed the way we understand our impact that we have on the world and what it is that we want to be doing with our time. Radically Distinct Radio is on a mission to help millions of people become better CEOs of their lives, their careers, and their businesses, so that together we can proactively create the future that we want and live life on our terms. So if you're feeling stuck in your business, trying to figure out how to get people to pay attention to you and what you have to offer, how to attract the right clientele, or if you're in your career and you're trying to figure out, what am I going to do next? What's my path? Or maybe you're just looking at your life and you're wondering, what do I want next? What you need is a personal brand strategy. Not just any strategy, a personal brand strategy. Because when we're thinking about what it is that you want and how you spend your time and your energy and your resources, it's personal. That means you have to take into account things like your reputation, the relationships that you have, and what it is that matters the most, and the value that you offer today. Not the value that you had 10 years ago, 5 years ago, or even last year. Today, we're going to talk about personal branding and how that's the first step to creating a renewed presence in the world and the most effective way to achieve any goal. And here to help me is somebody who's been my biggest cheerleader for the last 10 years to get the message out about Radically Distinct. Somebody who's created the #1 talk radio show in the Pacific Northwest for 8 years straight, and somebody who has created with her business and her Radically Distinct transformational radio team, the new mainstream in talk radio, Dr. Pat.
Wow, it's great to be here. That is quite an intro to get this show going here today. Jen, we're here to talk about Radically Distinct, and we're here to talk about, what does it mean to have a personal brand, right? Yeah. And how you help people discover what that is. I mean, it is a process of discovery. I want to ask you, along the way, you've been working in this business for quite some time. This is what you do. Why is having a radically distinct brand, having a call for radically distinct change, why is this so important, and what are you seeing in the work that you do today?
Well, I'm seeing that there are a lot of people that are hearing the call for change, and they're getting themselves out there, and they're investing in their brands, but they're spending a lot of time and energy and money, really, getting the right help in the wrong order. So, for example, I have a client. She's a CEO of a consulting firm in Boston. She's been in business for 20 years, and she's been doing a women's leadership retreat for the last 10 years. All of a sudden, everywhere, everyone's talking about women's leadership and women stepping into leadership. And she had just written a book, and she had this great platform for helping women actually step into leadership in the corporate world. And So what she did was she invested $30,000 in a new brand identity, over $50,000 with a PR team, and it wasn't really getting her much results. She wasn't really getting in any media. She wasn't really getting any attention. She wasn't getting any traction. Mm-hmm. And so, the way that one major problem was the way in which they were representing her, the PR team, was as an individual coach, with this inspiring message, which isn't really the right identity for her at all. She is a CEO of a consulting firm that has 45 consultants all around the world. And so her message and the way they positioned her in the media, it wasn't that interesting. She was kind of getting lost amongst all the other individual coaches out there. And so I came in and I created a brand strategy, a personal brand strategy for her as the CEO, and a brand strategy for the company, so that she could see the difference between her desires as the leader of the company and the needs of the business, which creates a lot of clarity. And then from there, we created a brand strategy for the Women's Leadership Retreat. And that's like a bunch of different brand strategy projects, but the results of which were a 20% increase in the number of people coming to the retreat, over 700% increase in the amount of visitors to her website. And, she went from having just regular local media exposure to being 4 times on Fox and CNN, on Fast Company, Entrepreneur Magazine, Success Magazine, Forbes Magazine, and the list goes on and on. So without a brand strategy, you really have no message or no way to direct your decisions so that they're consistent with who you are and the value that you offer in the world.
Yeah. I mean, do people even realize that, they're out in the world? We've heard this time and time again, right? We've heard people out there starting their businesses. They think about, what am I going to call my business? And, what am I going to put on my business card? And I would venture to say that the majority of folks that do that don't realize that there should be some kind of brand. There should be some kind of connect the dots, right? And then off we go, and things don't take on the kind of face that we think they should have taken on, and we scratch our heads. What is it that you've discovered here, with people, going down this pathway and kind of stumbling a few times? Most of the time, I think they feel a little shocked that they really didn't get it the first time.
Well, I think that, I've been producing brand campaigns for 15 years. So my understanding of the difference between what you're trying to do and how you communicate it is quite comprehensive. And what I've learned is like people's ability to see what they like and to know what they want, and their ability to communicate it, there's a big gap there. And that's normal. And just that now we have so many opportunities to market ourselves and to create business in the world that it's hard to know how to put your best foot forward and how to do it consistently. And consistency is the most important thing when you're trying to step out in front of a larger audience, because you can talk about all kinds of different things. You can put all kinds of different things on your card, but do they relate to what you're doing? So I think the reason why people are shocked by it is because although they can see what they want, their ability to organize themselves in a way in which they're showing up with all of the things that they have to offer and then direct the decisions that they make in order to build the right relationships, it can be very overwhelming to do it right on your own, right? You need somebody to help you see all the things that you're leaving out of the mix.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I think sometimes, and I think you and I have talked about this, is sometimes we can't see it for ourselves. Many people can look at us and they perceive us in a certain way. They perceive us as this or that or the other thing. And that goes for our businesses too. Especially for some folks that have been in business a long time, and they've kind of not really figured out that maybe I got to change it up here, because isn't that part of what you do as well? It's not just, I'm just starting my business, but sometimes businesses get a little bit stale.
Absolutely. And, because as the world changes, you have to adjust and change your business or your identity with the changes of the time. And because of technology, it's just the world is changing so fast. So you have to really be on top of your brand, as opposed to it being a once every 10 years or every 5 years. You're really like every decision you make is a brand decision. And because there are so many opportunities for customers or for people to see that you're not congruent, it becomes more and more pressure to do it right the first time. And we feel that. We know, like before we think a reason, we're emotionally tuning into what it is that we're either doing right or we're doing wrong according to our own compass. And so I think that that's the part that becomes very challenging for people, is that one, you got like the way in which you think about your brand has to change, because the way in which we can communicate and get the word out about it has changed. And so for a lot of people, that can mean, quite honestly, taking a look at the difference between who you are today versus who you were 5 years ago. Because let's say you're in a job, how you got that job and how you keep that job are going to be totally different based on the way that the business is changing, the culture is changing, the needs are changing. So you have to really adapt your value proposition as you go. And it has to happen faster than it has ever happened before. And so I think that part's a little dizzying for people, especially people who've been in business for a long time. And people who've been in business for a really long time, they build relationships. They understand that their business is built on relationships. And now you have the ability to build relationships in a lot more ways. So their reputation becomes like holds them back a lot of times to get themselves out into the new media because, they don't know how to control that.
Mm-hmm. And, part of this, too, is you get to look at people and help them discover things about their talents as well. I mean, we're going to be talking about that throughout the show today. We're going to be talking about, well, wait a minute. Once I figure out that, wait a minute, I may have something special going on here. And it's the proverbial now what? Before we go to now what, I know, Jen, you've got something coming up here that's going to help people explore this for themselves. Tell us a little bit about what you're planning for folks.
Well, I have a workshop coming up on December 9th and 10th. It's a personal brand strategy workshop where we're going to help you really create an action plan for how to renew your presence in the world and to accelerate the rate at which you achieve your goals. It's a small group. There's only going to be 10 people. So, if this is something that you would like to do before the new year hits, then, act fast. And I'm offering a 40% discount from now until November 19th to anybody who is listening in, and they put the promo code Dr. Pat in the place where you register.
Awesome. We're going to take a short break, everybody. When we come back, Jen's going to talk about what it means to position yourself like a radically distinct pro. What does that mean? And by the way, who are some of these pros? Who are the people out there when you hear a name, you don't even think about, wow, I know that name. I know that product. Even if you don't like it, you know it. But what happens when you can position yourself like a top 10 out there? Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Are you really good at what you do, but kind of awkward and uneasy when it comes to self-promotion? Maybe you struggle to find the right words or fear coming across as an imposter. A radically distinct personal brand strategy clarifies the unique value you offer and gives you the confidence and courage to share your message with the world. Go to jenmorgan.com to learn about Jen's upcoming 2-day personal brand workshop. That's Jen with 2 N's, Morgan.com. Registration is limited to 10 participants. Act now.
Transformation Talk Radio is dedicated to the education and awareness of Lyme disease.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Lyme Talk Radio. I'm Dr. Pat, joined here by
Dr. Nusheen Darvish.
Dr. Pat Basili and Dr. Nusheen Darvish will be bringing the most innovative, groundbreaking information, research, treatment innovations, and stories from those it affects every day.
I'm so excited to be talking about this.
We have so much to share.
Dr. Darvish and I are planning to do is connect the dots.
People suffering with all sorts of chronic diseases, it's time. It is time for them to transform.
Tune into Lyme Talk Radio and help keep our mission strong.
For the loyal listeners out there that have been listening to this incredible show on Lyme disease, we are not going to let you down. We're going to come through stronger and enrich the platform for Lyme disease awareness through Lyme Talk Radio. The message will continue, the conversations will become stronger, and the healing epic.
Hi, this is Leslie Fontaine, and my show is Sheer Alchemy on TransformationTalkRadio.com. When we're bogged down with our emotions, the hardships that plague us in our relationships, at work, our finances, we literally can't see the higher plane where we could be operating from. Tune in to Leslie Fontaine, Sheer Alchemy on TransformationTalkRadio.com.
Beyond being this amazing neurologist, inventor, author, Dr. Dan Cohen has been called to look at technology and look at personal and spiritual development and merge these together. As technology uses the healing and psychospiritual effects of synchronized sounds, vibrations, electromagnetic fields, and how that interacts with us in our nervous system in what we're calling the Soltec chair.
The Soltec Lounge induces profound levels of relaxation that transition over time into deep meditative states. The synchronized sound, vibration, and magnetic field induce these states. The subject doesn't have to work at it.
To learn more, go to soltecwellbeing.com. That's SOLTEC Wellbeing.
Hello and welcome back to Radically Distinct Radio. I'm Jen Morgan and I'm here with Dr. Pat, and we're going to talk about positioning yourself like a radically distinct pro.
Yeah, boy. Before we go ahead, why don't we stop for a minute, because I think it's important for people get a sense of how they can find out more about you. And certainly they can go to your website, right, Jen? They can find out more about the workshop. And, there are other things that you do as well. So what's the best way for folks to do that?
You can find me at jenmorgan.com. That's Jen with 2 N's, Morgan.com. Or you can send me an email, j@jenmorgan.com. Or you can call me direct, 206-972-5366.
Awesome. Okay, so in part of this and this discovery around this and looking at its personal brand, right? What does it mean? What does it mean to have a personal brand? And many of us are thinking, oh, they got to be talking for some like business but what I've come to know since working with you on this is that folks are thinking, well, wait a minute, I got a corporate job or I got some other job. I don't need a personal brand. But I'll tell you, in the world today and what's happening in order to achieve the kind of success, you got to know yourself. And you've got to know how you can be radically distinct in the workplace. So isn't this just beyond like, oh yeah, well, let's start our business, let's go do this? Isn't this like, wait a minute, if you want a career, period, this might be something you want to look at, right? Yeah. So how do we talk about that? Because now we're talking about positioning, and positioning can happen within a company, right?
Absolutely. Today you are an entrepreneur of your career, and nobody's looking out for you, so how do you proactively shape your path, especially when there's so much uncertainty? Knowing your brand, which is knowing the value that you have to offer. And what it does is it opens up your ability to see opportunities for yourself and know when to raise your hand, know when to promote yourself. And I think, especially when we're talking about positioning, people have a very military kind of idea about what positioning is. It doesn't really serve their purposes. You have to know your value before you can position yourself effectively in conversations and in meetings and in the marketplace. People have a tendency to leave half of their value on the table because they're bored with that part of themselves, or it's really easy for them. They don't have to think about that part anymore. And yet that's the very part of them that makes them be somebody that people want to listen to. I was just in a conversation with a woman yesterday, and she had 25 years in investment banking, and she's going out into the world talking about how she's a great relationship builder. That's how she talks about what she's doing. And I'm like, that's great. You're a great relationship builder, but you got 25 years experience in investment banking. So let's talk about how to create what you're saying about yourself in a way that encompasses all of the value you bring.
Well, yeah, and part of that, let's talk about what positioning means, because I think positioning, Jen, is one of those words that many people that also don't like the word power shy away from. And, I think for me, I was really naive in my corporate experience. And even as a corporate executive, I was really quite naive in not understanding positioning. I really was. And, today I'm not as naive. In the world of media, positioning is very important, but not for the reasons that I grew up believing. Positioning is important if you have a passion and a purpose and you want to get your message out there. It's not going to help if for us here at the network not to grow, not to be like in February, 11 times bigger than we are today. It doesn't serve the people we're talking with. But having to get to that place has been agonizing. Mm-hmm. Don't you make it a bit easier for people? Well, like, I wish I would have met you 10 years ago, right? That's like my greatest belief right there.
Yeah, so positioning is very important because what you're doing is you're setting context for people to decide if they want to listen to what you have to say. Your expertise therefore gives people a way to listen to you, so or you're basically creating a space in other people's minds that makes them choose whether or not what you're about to talk about is interesting to them, whether you're a person that they want to listen to. So that's a really important, it doesn't matter if you're doing products or you're talking about yourself. It's the context you set for other people that gets them interested in what it is that you're trying to say. It establishes something for yourself. And people have a hard time with it because, especially when it comes to elevator pitches and writing taglines, people will start writing elevator pitches and taglines before they have a clear context for what it is they're trying to communicate. And then what ends up happening is they end up wasting a lot of time boring people with their message. And then the feedback that they're getting is, oh, I'm not an interesting person. Oh, but no, really just what you're saying is not really connecting with people. Like they're lost in what you're saying. You're going on and on and on. They have no way to listen to you. And so then you're interpreting the information as something that isn't really what's happening. And then you end up with this idea that you're not good at self-promotion. And the next thing you know, you're hiding in the corner in your bedroom instead of getting out and marketing yourself. So the reason why having somebody like me help you is really important is I'm just going to clarify, first of all, how you're trying to position yourself so that you have a set of ingredients in order to create your elevator pitch and things along that nature. And you know how to, when you need to position yourself and when you don't.
Okay, so here I am and I'm listening to this. The first thing I want to know is, what is it that you're going to help me get done in this? And I know that the workshop goes into this way, way more than we're talking about today. But, this is the part where people can also get some absolute clarity about who they are, what their vision is, and do I actually think I have something of value to offer here, right?
Yes. Yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to outline the overview of your brand, which is the context of your communication. Communication has both a context and content. Context is a framework, has your vision, your positioning statement, who you do for what, the value that you're offering, why it's different from it. That's the context that we want to communicate from. And when we have that, we can get creative with the content. But if you don't have that, then you're usually doing these sort of sideways, maybe only talking about what you do from one angle instead of having like a really good, clear understanding of what you're doing. So I'm going to break that down a little bit for you. So your communication has a context and a content. So when it comes to positioning, I position myself as a brand strategist for executives, entrepreneurs, and service-oriented professionals who want to reinvent, reposition, and renew their presence in the world, both personally and professionally. That's a lot of words, okay, but that's the positioning. The value I provide them is the ability to stand out from their competition and capture the attention of the people they want to reach. An accelerated relationship building process, and that which leads to sales, which leads to people wanting to talk to them, and the ability to utilize their time, energy, and resources most effectively. Now, that's not my elevator pitch. It's way too long. But my elevator pitch is I empower people to be radically distinct. And I do that through personal branding, corporate consulting, workshops, and my radio show. And now people are like, oh, what? That's interesting. Oh, let's talk to Jen. That's my elevator pitch. And my bio is a little bit more detailed. I say I'm a brand marketing consultant and personal branding specialist with 15 years experience, and those are the sorts of things that just a different context for the way in which you're creating your content. So each piece of information in your elevator pitch, your bio, your website, they all have a different way in which they need to be interpreted. So first, what we're going to do in the personal brand workshop is define the context and then get creative, create your elevator pitch so that you can actually know the difference between what you're trying to communicate and how to communicate it effectively.
And, part of this is really taking a look at where do I want to go? Where do I want to go? I mean, how has this been that you've been able to work with some people and see the change that they've made when they get about here?
Well, so the way that I look at what's happening is we look outside of the world and try to figure out who we are. And that's just natural because we can't see ourselves. And so when you have somebody come in, and my whole job is just to sort of chisel away at the way you think about yourself until it's much more, defined like a diamond, right? A really well cut diamond is cut in a way in which you illuminate the brilliance. Right? That's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to take a look at what it is that you have to offer, and then almost every single time it's changing things like, people have their strength finders, and they have these strength finders, and they're using that a lot in their conversations right now about what it is that they do and how they show up in the world. But that's just your perspective. That's the way you see things. That doesn't translate into results for other people. So what we have to do is take what you love to do and what you're good at, and then turn that into a way to talk about the results that creates for other people, and specifically the group of people that you want to attract. Because how you talk to a group of financial planners and bankers and people in finance is a lot different than people who you talk to who are more spiritually oriented, who are much more interested in making a difference in the world. So that's really basically what you're trying to have an understanding of as a person who's trying to be a communicator in the world. You need to understand who you're talking to and who you are and the value you offer, and how to communicate that in a way that other people can hear.
Yeah. Okay. Before we go to break, tell folks one more time, how can they find out more about the workshop you're putting together, and how do they register?
You can go to my website, jenmorgan.com. And right at the top, there's going to be a banner that comes across, got my picture, and then the next one's going to be personal brand. Click on that personal brand workshop, and then right there, you'll be able to press the button that says register. And then when you get to the registration page, you can put a code Dr. Pat, and that will get you 40% off of the workshop from now until November 19th. If that's all just too confusing for you, you can just give me a call, 206-972-5366, or drop me an email at j@jenmorgan.com.
Awesome. Let's take a short break, everyone. When we come back, we're going to talk about, wait a minute, how do you find a radically distinct voice? What does that mean to have a radically distinct voice? Has anybody ever turned to you and said to you, hey, what do you do? And you have to think about 30 seconds, and then something comes out. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with Jen Morgan.
Get a good feeling, yeah.
Do you feel like you have a tremendous untapped potential and you can't figure out how to express it effectively in your life and business? Maybe you find yourself starting, stopping, starting over. If you need inspiration that leads to action, you need a radically distinct personal brand strategy. It gives you a plan of action to get your ideas out of your head and into the world. Go to jenmorgan.com to learn about Jen's upcoming 2-day workshop. That's Jen with 2 N's, Morgan.com. Registration is limited to 10 participants. Act now.
The Earth is an ever-changing being. Goddess light shamanic healer Bree Gibbs guides us through the ascending worlds and brings forth knowledge and truth. As a light creator, she is here to provide new information needed at this time in our evolution. Join Bree as she shares messages from guides, spirits, ascended masters, goddesses, and others. Tune in Tuesdays at 3 p.m. Pacific and Thursdays at 1 p.m. Pacific for the Silver Gaia Show and live the authentic life.
On the cutting edge of the new mainstream, Christine Upchurch is passionate about bringing together science, psychology, and spirituality in a way that can be applied to our everyday lives for true transformation. The Christine Upchurch Show, stellar conversations to illuminate your journey, engages some of the most outstanding visionaries on the planet in lively dialogue to inspire you to become that bright light you're meant to be. Join Christine every Friday at 11 a.m. Pacific Time on KKNW, AM 1150, and Transformation Talk Radio.
Would you like to experience life-transforming adventures in personal expansion and world service? If you do, tune in to learn about magical innate abilities that you can develop and use to make your dreams come true. Joy Elaine is author of The Joy Chronicles And she's inviting you and millions of others to join her in working with galactic masters, angels, and the Ashtar Command as they assist humanity and planet Earth to achieve their ultimate destination of ascension. For more information about this upcoming event and broadcast, visit joyelaine.com. That's joy, ELAINE.com.
Brand consultant Jen Morgan is here with Radically Distinct Radio to help you take control of your future and maximize your brand's power to produce results. Whether you're an individual trying to reinvent yourself and launch a new venture, or you're an executive trying to reposition your company to modernize your sales and marketing programs, Jen Morgan and the RAD Method empower you to play to your strengths and show up in the world as your most powerful brand. To learn more, go to jenmorgan.com. That's Jen with 2 N's, Morgan.com, or call 206-972-5366.
Hello, and welcome back to Radically Distinct Radio. I'm here with Dr. Pat, and we're talking about the importance of having a personal brand in the world.
Yeah, that's important. And, the reason it's important is because half the time, we go through life and we have a passion and we have a purpose. And part of that is, it takes us a while to figure it out. And then we're not 100% sure that that's really it. Mm-hmm. And what I think you do, Jen, is you help people get really laser focused about it. But also more importantly, it's really about being radically distinct. And that's really what we're talking about. And, now we're talking about how do you develop a radically distinct voice? There's some people that, may think, well, wait a minute. Yeah, we've heard about that elevator pitch thing. But it's really, really important. Not only is it important for what we're doing in the world, but we're finding that people in the way we're communicating have to be really succinct with who they are. We're very, very fast to really move off somebody's website or something else. So what are you finding about this radically distinct voice? How do you help people develop this?
When we're talking about self-marketing, there's a big challenge between you need to be likable so that people mm-hmm. want to work with you, and collaborative so that you're easy to work with. But at the same mm-hmm. time, you need to stand out and be different, and that's very competitive, right? That's just naturally a competitive stance. And mm-hmm. when you do stand out, you open yourself up for criticism and for people to not like you, which is kind of against the way in which we are used to being. Like, we want to belong to something. We want to contribute to society. So standing out is just very uncomfortable for people. And if you take if you have a lot of pride in the work that you do, like a lot of people that hire me, they have a lot of pride in the work that they do, meaning it matters a lot to them. They don't put crappy stuff out into the world. They take time to think about what they're doing. And also their reputation means a lot to them. So for them, coming across authentically is very important. In fact, if it's not something that they feel good about, if it's not aligned with their purpose and their passion and the reputation that they have, they just won't do it. So when authenticity matters to you, the perspective that you have and that you bring really needs to be clarified. And you can't really walk out into the world and say something like, "My name is Jen Morgan. I empower people to be radically distinct," unless you actually do that and you believe that you do that. And I can tell you for sure from my experience that knowing you do that and believing that you do that are two completely different things.
Well, here we are. I mean, how many people have you worked with, right, where you said, "Hey, I'd like to help you. Where do you want to go? What do you want to do?" We're not really groomed or trained to be able to speak powerfully, are we?
No. In fact, I would say that we've been trained to sit down, shut up, get in line, and buy the stuff that we've been sold. And I think that's a challenging. People have all kinds of different words about the programming we've created. There's a lot of language around what that means. But I think when you grow up in a society where we're taught to be like everybody else in order to organize ourselves, it's hard to figure out how to then effectively not do that? How do you do that well? It's not an easy thing for people to get behind. I had a client who, she was incredibly talented strategist. She was what's called an HR business. I forget actually the title, HR business development person, who basically helped create the business pieces and the people work together well. So she worked in HR. She's an executive. And she was at a company that went through a major rebrand. And when you go through a rebrand for a company the size of hers, is what's called a multi-matrix organization. There's a lot of moving parts. And she had developed a strategy for how the people part would work when they rolled out this plan. And when it would come, and everybody was on board with her strategy, and when it would come time to making the key decisions that had to do with the business, she would get run over. Nobody would listen to her. She would quite honestly be in these challenging situations with many male executives, and they would say, "Oh, that's great. I know we agreed to that, but we're not going to do that." And she would not only not be able to get the person to see it another way, she would find herself really getting small and shrinking. And so what the problem was that there was a bunch of different challenges that she was having. One was she hadn't involved them in her strategy in so much as the strategies that they were creating. So she really needed to be more involved in what each of these executives were going to do after she presented her change management strategy. And so she was looking at all the extra work and all the extra time that she was going to have to spend to fix the problems that they created by rolling out the problems without using her HR strategy. And she was exhausted. And she eventually got recruited to another company who was going to go through the same thing. And so the reason why she hired me is because she didn't want to recreate that exact same situation in a new place, right? She wanted to show up in a way in which she was going to be taken more seriously and have more influence all the way through the project. So, well, the first thing that we had to do is we had to define the value of the strategy that she was creating from the perspective of these executives. And then what we had to do is we had to get her in a conversation with them that allowed her to see insight into what they wanted to do before they implemented it. And so, I wrote a bio for her and I wrote an elevator pitch and all these things for her. And one of the things I put in her bio was that her strategies were second to none. And she went away, she thought about that, and she came back and she was like, I cannot own that. I just cannot own that. I cannot own that. Wow. And I had to really work with her. I said, okay, why? And she's like, all these executives, how can I say that my strategies are second to none? And again, I wasn't saying you should go and walk in and say that, but this was just in her bio. And she was like looking at herself and she's trying to identify with what I wrote about her. And I said, well, tell me this. If you are going to roll out a strategy in a multi-matrix organization, can you do that alone? Or do you have to collaborate with lots of different people, with all the executives, with the HR team? She said, you have to collaborate. And I said, would you be one of the top people to be at that table? And she said, absolutely. And I said, so are your strategies second to none? And she was like, I guess if you put it like that. Uh-huh. And so what she did was she walked into this organization totally new, knocked on every single executive's door, and she said, hi, my name is Kelly, and what I can do for you is I have the C-suite success plan. All you got to do is come out of your meetings, your strategy meetings, have a conversation with me, and I will help you create a strategic plan for how to roll it out in your department. And she, in that conversation, established so much credibility that now, to this day, it's been a year later, not one of those executives goes and creates any strategy or makes any actions without talking to her first.
Wow. And are people really open? Where are folks today? Where do you think we are? I think that we've gone through different periods over the past 8 or 10 years, really, where people have been regrouping, so to speak. What is your sense of folks? Are they ready to take action? And if they are ready to take action, how do you help them do that?
I think that people are all over. I think people really want to take action, like a lot, really, really want to take action. But I think what we do is that we don't take the right actions. And I think the reason that we don't take the right actions is we have too many conflicting goals that disperse your energy and your attention all over the place and confuse other people about what you're trying to accomplish, and therefore reduce your effectiveness and your enthusiasm to continue to push through when you honestly experience resistance. Because if you're somebody who's trying to stand out in the world, you're trying to create something new, you're going to experience resistance. And how you interpret that resistance is going to determine what your next step is. Are you like really hearing the message and the feedback, or are you over personalizing it and changing what you're trying to do in order to fit into other people's ideas of who you're supposed to be? You can't manage a brand that is morphed by other people's expectations. Mm-hmm. So I think the people that I run to, they want change, and they want to take these they want to get their brand out into the world. And the biggest challenge that I think that they have is too many conflicting goals.
Well, this is part of also the process in the workshop that you're going to be putting together. One more time, let folks know again the best way to find out about the workshop, and then when we come back from break, we're going to talk about, what does action really look like? But more importantly, what does radically distinct action look like? So again, tell folks how they can find out about the workshop, what the date is, and they can get it on their calendar.
The date is December 9th and 10th, and you can find out more about it at jenmorgan.com. And when you get to the website, there's a banner that's got my main banner, and then there's a second banner that comes through, and that's the banner for the workshop. So click on that workshop. That's how you can find it. If you cannot find it, you can email me, j@jenmorgan.com. That's Jen with 2 N's, or you can give me a call at 206-972-5366.
All right, let's take a short break, everyone. When we come back, we're going to talk about, okay, now that we know these things, what do we do? How do we move beyond setbacks, frustration, and how do we get things done? Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Sky Siegel co-hosts one of today's most popular psychic shows, Angels and Answers, with Artie Hoffman, as she communicates healing messages from the spirit world. These messages can be astounding, enlightening, and life-changing. Born with the God-given talent of inner guidance and the amazing ability to heal, Sky has healed thousands of people. Schedule a reading with Sky now. Call 908-500-1474 and visit skyofangels.com.
How would you like increased health and vitality? How would you like to avoid the onset of disease as well as slow the aging process? This is all possible through a simple, safe, and natural process. Every day we are either moving toward wellness or away from wellness.
Hi, I'm Mary Jane Mack. I'd like to be your partner in achieving optimal health. Contact me now at maryjanemack.com or call 425-392-0659. Visit maryjanemack.com.
What is a brilliant culture? And how do we create them? Why are they important? Claudette Rowley has created a breakthrough 5-step process to help you design a culture that is authentic, innovative, and successful. Learn how to create change with Cultural Brilliance Radio, the DNA of organizational excellence, and Claudette Rowley. To learn more or work with Claudette, visit ClaudetteRowley.com.
TheAngelLady.net. 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 1-800-323-1790. 1-800-323-1790. Sue Storm. TheAngelLady.net.
Tune in to Mainstream Metaphysics Radio to harness your connection with the universe to effect change for optimal success and happiness. Named one of the country's top psychics, Eve now brings her insights and gifts to this weekly hit call-in show, joined by visionaries, leaders, and gifted others, but mostly you. Jot it down, Thursdays, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern on TransformationTalkRadio.com.
Do you want to achieve your goals? Do you want to strengthen relationships with others? Do you want to improve your financial status? Colette Marie Steffen is partnering with Mark Kettenbach to bring you an energetic upgrade online experience. Unfold and develop your full potential. Visit energeticupgrade.com today for more information. That's energeticupgrade.com.
I love your music selection, Benny. It's really great. Welcome back to Radically Distinct Radio. I'm Jen Morgan. If you'd like to talk to me about working with me personally, or if you'd like to register for the Personal Brand Workshop, go to my website, jenmorgan.com. That's Jen with 2 N's, morgan.com. Or you can send me an email, j@jenmorgan.com, or call me, 206-972-5366.
Awesome. Okay, Jen, we're talking about action now, right? It's like, okay, now I've discovered who I am. Now I have somewhat of a voice. But here I am. I want to keep things going. I want to get things done. What do I do?
So the way that I think about it is when you're outlining and defining your brand, you're starting to uncover a lot of opportunities and low-hanging fruit that you could be doing in terms of taking action, things that aren't so far out of your wheelhouse, right? That, like, the process of clarifying your brand strategy is a process of figuring out what are the pieces that we have to work with. And the biggest challenge that I think people have when it comes to taking action is they're trying to do things that are so far removed from the goals that they actually have. So, for example, in self-marketing, I was saying that one of your goals might be to be liked, to be likable, to get people to want to work with you. And another goal might be to stand out, to get attention, to get people to hire you, right? Those are two totally different goals. Another different goal is someone to take, you want someone within your organization to take your advice. And another goal might be that you want them to respect you. Now, those are two totally different goals. For example, a client, she is a senior vice president of regulatory at a really, like a $3.2 billion pharmaceutical company. And she's a person who sits down and looks at a project from marketing to look for the potential problems that could come up in 5 years or something when it comes to government regulation, so that they don't cause a huge holdup for the business to move forward, which will cost them, millions and millions of dollars. So she's studying this plan, and she sees a challenge that might come up with a vendor, and she starts to think about all the possibilities, all the things that could go wrong. And so she makes a meeting with the senior vice president of marketing to discuss it, and she tells him what he needs to do. And then he just looks at her with a blank face, and she can't get him to listen to her at all. And so she ends up having a meeting with their boss, in which the boss looks at the senior vice president of marketing and says, well, what do you think? And he says, it's not a problem. And so the boss says, okay, well, that's not going to be a problem because, they're both equals. What is he going to do? So what ends up happening is exactly what she said, caused a huge problem for her and her reputation with the regulators. And nobody recognized that she had mentioned this ahead of time. So nobody gave her any respect for having said it ahead of time. So what happens a lot of time is when you're not knowing your value, which is what she was doing. She's not understanding. She wants this senior vice president of marketing to respect her. She wants him to take her advice seriously. So when she shows up, she wants to tell him what to do in an authoritative way so that he, believes it's important or something like that. But if you know your value, if you're clear about the value of your expertise, then you don't need people to respect your value. You just respect yourself. So her goal in that situation would have been, hey, there's a problem maybe in this plan that you have here, and I'd like your advice on how we should mitigate it. Now she's opened up the conversation for him to use his expertise. She's not trying to get him to take her advice because she's, she needs his respect. She's instead trying to create a collaborative conversation with him. I'm going to give you another example. Same thing. I have a client who's a financial planner, and he would find himself at networking events, and he had a hard time kind of getting in conversations with people in the first place. When the conversations he would get into would be ones where people would be asking him if they should invest in a certain stock. And then he would find himself in a debate about that company, if that company was like a good company, which is not at all the conversation he wanted to be in. The conversation he wanted to be in was, what? If that stock is good for you, is going to depend on your financial plan, your goals for the future, and, in general, the life you want to live. And I'm happy to sit down and take a look at what you want to do. Would you like to schedule some time with me? Now, in that goal, one goal was you should see my expertise as valuable, so I'm going to argue with you about what you think you should do. And another goal is I'm going to position myself as someone you can trust so that you want to come have a consultation with me. So that self-marketing, proving ourselves, positioning ourselves, getting people to take us seriously really gets in the way of our ability to get someone to want to have a consultation with us, someone to really listen to us, take our advice, work with us, and solve problems. And that all really comes back to not understanding the value that you have and trying to get other people to give you something that you need to give to yourself first.
Wow. This is a journey that people get to go on. And they get to go on this journey because they're really looking to contribute to the world. I mean, I think that's part of the dialogue. Many people with great intentions step forward and they attempt to take action to create a better world. And along the way, they stumble and a lot of times fall and don't know how to get up. Isn't this part of what you do to help them? How do you put it all together? How do you go forward? And then, what are you doing to help people maintain this as they do move forward?
Well, the first step, like I said, is to get clear on the value that you're offering and who is going to value that offer so that you don't need to try to get something from somebody, some emotional thing from people that you're trying to get them to take a specific action. So the first step is to really know your value so that we can remove the conflicts in your communication and you can come across more authentically and intentionally in the conversations that you have. Then what we're going to do, and which is what we're going to do at the Personal Brand website workshop, we're going to take that understanding of your value, that understanding of your vision and the way that you want to be perceived in the world, and we're going to create an elevator pitch. We're going to practice it, and then I'm going to coach you on how you're coming across so that we can figure out what conflicts are in the way of you believing that is what you actually do. And then we're going to create an action plan that you can do based on the skills that you already have.
Wow. As we kind of move forward and we take a look at this, there are many things that you get to do and work with people. There are values that you help people instill in their lives, and there are actions that you really support people along the way to do. What is this that you want to say to folks today? What do you want to help them understand about the work that you're doing that, would help them? What would you like to say in closing today?
We're living in a time of radically distinct change. And the question is, are you fighting it or are you hearing the call and proactively shaping your future? And if you're hearing the call, do you have the right people on your team? Today, there's so much disruption, so much competition for your time, attention, and resource. It's very, very noisy. It's not good enough to just be different. You have to be radically distinct. And what we say here at Radically Distinct Radio is if you're not radically distinct, you're on the verge of being radically extinct. And let's be honest, your business, your career, your future is endangered. So if you want to become a better CEO of your life, your career, and your business, you want to proactively shape your future, live life on your own terms, you have to get more strategic about how you spend your time, energy, and resources. If you're not willing to compromise, you're not willing to be mediocre, then it's personal. You want radically distinct change, and you need a personal brand strategy to build a renewed presence in the world. That's the work I do. And if you want to accelerate the rate at which you achieve your goals, come to my Personal Brand Workshop.
Okay, tell people again when you're having that and how they can sign up for it. And you have a special offer too.
Yes, it's on December 9th and 10th. The special offer is you need to go to my website, jenmorgan.com. That's Jen with 2 N's, Morgan.com. Look for the banner. It's going to be the second banner that comes up on the homepage that says Personal Brand Workshop. Click on that banner. Then you're going to click the registration button and you're going to put this code in there, Dr. Pat. And that's going to give you 40% off of the registration from now until November 19th. If that is too confusing, give me a call, 206-972-5366, or email me, j@jenmorgan.com.
And also, let folks know also about your radio show, your podcast. How can they find out more about this? How can they also download your podcast?
Absolutely. Radically Distinct Radio is here live with you and KKNW, but we also have a podcast that you can find on SoundCloud, Google Play, all of the major apps on your own phone, all of them. Or you can go to my website, jenmorgan.com, and click on the radio tab to learn more. You can also follow us on Instagram at Radically Distinct. We have tons of inspirational quotes and fun things about personal branding. And you can follow me on Facebook at Radically Distinct, and you can tweet with me at Jen Morgan Brand.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. And for more about us, you can check us out at transformationtalkradio.com. Also, tune in to the drpatshow.com. And remember, this is all about you. Step forward in your life powerfully and step into your own voice. We'll see you next time.
Hey, thank you for tuning into Radically Distinct Radio. I don't want you to miss an episode, so subscribe to Radically Distinct Radio on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and TuneIn Radio. And if you can, please rate and review the show on iTunes. Stay connected to me. Sign up for my newsletter on my website, jenmorgan.com. Follow at Radically Distinct on Instagram and Facebook, and tweet with me at Jen Morgan Brand. Until next time, I'm Jen Morgan, reminding you to be radically distinct.